If you work on the IoT or industrial IoT systems, you must have used the popular open source MQTT broker called Mosquitto, or at least you have heard the name of Mosquitto MQTT broker. I have been using Mosquitto as my main MQTT broker in my lab for quite a while, but I've reached to the point that Mosquitto wasn't enough for me. So I've started to explore what are other options as an open source MQTT broker in the market. The good news is I found another open source MQTT broker which is very powerful and has more features compared to Mosquitto. And to be honest, I don't understand why not everyone else is talking about this MQTT broker. So if you are looking for a powerful open source MQTT broker, this video is for you. I know some of you might already know I'm going to talk about EMQX MQTT broker. In this video, we are going to introduce EMQX MQTT broker. We are going to discuss what are the unique features of this powerful MQTT broker, and then we are going to install the community version or the open source version of the EMQX on a Siemens IoT2050. And you will be amazed how easy it is to install this powerful MQTT broker on any device. After installing the EMQX community version on a Siemens IoT2050, we are going to set it up and we are going to use it for the first time. As one of the many Mosquitto MQTT broker users, I was so impressed after seeing all the features that the free open source version of the EMQX offers. So I wanted to say thank you to the EMQX team for offering the free version of this software to the community. So without further ado, let's jump into the details and do some hands-on and fun stuff because that's what we do at Block IoT. Before starting to install EMQX MQTT broker on our Siemens IoT2050 device, let's have a quick review of this MQTT broker and see what's unique about this MQTT broker and overall why we might consider moving from Mosquitto MQTT broker to a more advanced MQTT broker such as EMQX. To get any technical information about EMQX MQTT broker, you can refer to the documentation on their website. There are too much information here and I'm almost sure that not many people go through all these details, so I'll try to break it down and make it as simple as possible. So first of all, EMQX is just another MQTT broker and its role is similar to any other MQTT broker, which is managing all message publications and message subscriptions. Of course, there are many more into it, such as security, data integration, and so on. EMQX broker comes in different flavors. It has an open source and free version, which you can go to the GitHub and download the source code if you would, and this is the version that we are going to focus on this video because it provides all the features that you need for a small project. EMQX is written in a programming language called Erlang. Erlang is a programming language and runtime which was designed by Ericsson for high availability and fault tolerance systems, because as you can imagine, in communication systems there are too many nodes and subsystems, so fault tolerance is very important. And using Erlang as the main programming language for this MQTT broker was very impressive for me because high availability and fault tolerance is a very important feature in any MQTT broker. The integrated database in the EMQX MQTT broker is called Amnesia. As you may know, Amnesia is a distributed and soft real-time database management system written in Erlang. These two facts are not important to you as a user, but it is important to know EMQX is using the technologies that are meant for fault-tolerant system. So besides open source and free version of the EMQX, there are other versions that are not included in this video, but if you are an enterprise or a big company, you might consider going with the enterprise version or even cloud-based versions. You can deploy EMQX on your choice of cloud or even get it as a SaaS or software as a system. So what is unique about this MQTT broker? The first and most important feature is EMQX seems to be the only open source project that offers MQTT broker clustering. So using the free version, you can have a cluster of MQTT brokers, which helps you achieve a highly available system. I could be wrong, I don't know all the MQTT brokers, but please let me know if there is other open source and free MQTT broker that offers clustering. Because I know most of the Block IoT's followers are OT professionals, not IT professionals, just to make sure what does clustering mean, you can refer to this graphic. So in simple words, clustering means instead of having one single MQTT broker, you deploy a few or many MQTT brokers which work in parallel, and if one MQTT broker goes down, there are other MQTT brokers to keep the system up and running. The second unique feature about EMQX MQTT broker is having a graphical dashboard for managing your MQTT broker. If you have worked with Mosquitto MQTT broker, you know that you have to deal with command line if you want to change any setting in your MQTT broker, which is not convenient all the time, and I'd appreciate EMQX for offering this feature for free. So I'm not going to repeat all the information that are available on the documentation, but as you can see here as a summary, EMQX is meant for small to extremely large systems. But if you are working on a highly resource restricted systems or devices, you might keep using Mosquitto because it's highly lightweight. I'd strongly suggest to go over the benchmarks and comparison between EMQX and other MQTT brokers such as Mosquitto to understand what's the performance of this MQTT broker. Of course, this MQTT broker supports all different versions of MQTT such as MQTT 5 and 3, and the data throughput is really impressive. Let's start installing the EMQX MQTT broker on our Siemens IoT2050. To get started, you need to make sure your IoT2050 is powered up and it's connected to the network, as you can see here. So once your IoT2050 is powered up and your network connection is established, you can open your choice of SSH terminal to connect to the terminal of your IoT2050. By the way, if you are not familiar with IoT2050, we have a complete tutorial to get us started with this device, so don't miss that tutorial out. Okay, so now we just need to log into our IoT2050 terminal. Now we just go back to the EMQX website, and with just a few simple commands, you can install the EMQX community version on your IoT2050. To find the required commands to install the EMQX MQTT broker on your IoT2050, just navigate to the installation and migration section and select the Debian distribution. So as you can see, you can install EMQX on Debian 10, 11, and 12, and our IoT2050 is running an OS based on Debian 11, so we are good to install that. So to install the EMQX, you just need to copy this command line to download the EMQX repository and just paste it to your terminal. Because I've already installed the EMQX on this device, I'm not going to enter this command. But once you enter this command, it will take just a few seconds and the repository will be downloaded to your device. Once the repository is downloaded, you can install the EMQX MQTT broker using this command. So just copy the command and simply paste it in your terminal. Okay, that's pretty much it. You've just downloaded and installed the EMQX MQTT broker on your IoT2050. So at this point, all you need to do is just starting your MQTT broker. To start the EMQX, you just need to copy this command and paste it in your terminal. You can find out the current status of your EMQX MQTT broker using this simple command. So once your MQTT broker is successfully installed and has started, you can open the graphical dashboard to start managing your MQTT broker. To access the dashboard, you just need to enter the IP address of your MQTT broker server and the port number of 18083. The default username and password is admin and public. And after you log in for the first time, you will be asked to change your password. And because I've already logged into my MQTT broker, I've already changed my password to a more secure password. So I just log into my MQTT broker UI. And once you logged in, you will see this nice looking dashboard. And that's what I really like about this MQTT broker, because it's very easy to manage everything visually rather than going into a terminal and enter some command in the command line. This is for sure is more intuitive and user-friendly. There are a lot of information in this dashboard. Let's just quickly overview the most important ones. So as you can see at the center of the dashboard, you can quickly overview the current status of your MQTT broker, such as the number of MQTT clients that are connected to this MQTT broker, number of topics, and number of subscription to different topics in this MQTT broker. And if you scroll down a little bit, you will see different incoming messages, outgoing messages, and various metrics about the data communication in your MQTT broker. By the way, if this is your first time logging in your dashboard, you will only have one node in the center. But in my setup, I'm running a cluster consists of 2 MQTT brokers or 2 nodes. I have 2 nodes in the center. Don't worry, clustering is very easy in EMQX. I will show you how to set up a cluster in a few minutes as a separate video, so please stay tuned for that. So besides having this cool and comprehensive information about your MQTT broker, you have a menu bar on the left that you can go through for different purposes. So let's start with the first one. The first option is just cluster overview. That's where we are right now, and you can go to the clients because right now there is no MQTT connection between a client and this MQTT broker. We don't have any information here, but let's just connect to this MQTT broker and make sure everything is working. There are many good MQTT clients in the market, and as you see in the previous video, I always use MQTT Explorer. But EMQX also offers a free and open source MQTT client called MQTTX, and I suggest to use that for this demo. So you can just go to this page and download your MQTT client. I've already installed that, so I just open my MQTTX. So let's just create a new connection. I just give it a name, IoT2050. The IP address of my server is 192.168.0.250. I haven't set up any username and password. I'll show you how to set that up, but for now we just leave it as blank and hit the connect. As you can see, we have successfully established a connection between MQTTX and our EMQX MQTT broker. So let's just go back to our dashboard and refresh the page. And as you can see here in the dashboard, we can confirm that there is one connection to our MQTT broker. You can see the client ID, the IP address of the device that is connected to here. So feel free to explore different menus. I'm just going to highlight the most important one, but for example, the retained messages, you can go over here. You can see different messages that are retained for different topics and also the alarms and so on. So in the next menu, you can set up the authentication and authorization for different topics. So to get started, you can set up the authentication. That's the username and password that you define that any MQTT clients that needs to connect to this broker needs to have. And of course, in a production line, this is a must, and you have to set up your authentication as soon as you can. So setting up authentication is fairly easy. You just click the create, and EMQX supports 3 different authentication methods. The most common one is a password-based, which the username and password that you create securely get stored in a local database in the broker. And as you can see, there are 2 other different methods for authentications, which you can go through the documentation and see what is the difference and which one suits the best for your application. But here I just select the password base and I hit the next. And in this section, I can define where my information should be saved. For samples and demos, for sure you want to go with the built-in database, but EMQX gives you this option that you can store all your information on external databases such as MySQL, MongoDB, Postgre, and so on. So I just hit the next, and the default password hash is SHA-256, which is secure enough, and we just leave it as default, and you hit the create. So now we have an authentication mechanism in place. Now we can start creating our users for different clients as we want. Creating a user is fairly simple as well. You just click the users and hit the add. I just say user and a password. So from this point, you can use this username and password on any client to connect to this MQTT broker. Another nice feature in this dashboard is you can define a list of banned clients. So think about you have hundreds or thousands of devices, and for some reason you just don't want some of these clients connect to this broker for any reason, maybe temporarily or permanently. That's where you come and define your banned list. The next important menu is webhooks, flow designer, rules, and connectors. And this is one of the unique features about EMQX. So in EMQX, integration of data with upstream systems such as Apache Kafka or RabbitMQ is fairly easy. You can define what information to be sent where with just simple graphical clicks. So let's look at the flow designer and see what you can do with this feature. The idea of flow designer is very cool and neat in the EMQX MQTT broker. A flow is very simple concept. You have a source, you have a processing, and a sink node. So you get some data from a source node, and then you can apply some filters or do some data processing on a source, and ultimately you publish that process value or data to an output node or sink. The output node could be just another topic in the same MQTT broker or another HTTP server which is sitting somewhere else. So let's just quickly create a flow and see how it works. So we will just add a message as a data source. You can just drag and drop it and just give it a name. You just call it test. And you can add a filter or data processing at the center. And as you can see in the data processing node, you can select different fields from the message. For example, you can select the topic name, the QoS, or the payload, which is the most common one. And then you can transform it using different functions such as math functions, string functions, depends on the payloads that you are working on. For example, on the math function, you can do rounding or a few other math operations. You get the idea. And you just give it a name, just call it name, test. And the cool thing is, this is a view that is called form view. You can switch to SQL view if you feel more comfortable dealing with SQL commands compared to just a graphical user interface. And we hit the save. And now you can connect your source node to the data processing node. And ultimately, you can just republish that message or send it to an MQTT broker, or you can just print it in a console. But for now, let's just do it a republish, and you can just give it a name and then you can republish. So you get the idea. This is very cool and neat feature. I personally really like this feature, and it opens a lot of doors for your projects. So make sure you use this feature. You can also use the rules engine to manipulate your data for data integration. So as you can see here, the flow that we just created is automatically added to your rules engine as one rule. But you can create your own rule in this menu by clicking on the create. And there is a whole documentation for how to use this feature, but just summarize, you can just select different data from different tables of your database, and based on the data, the incoming data, you can add different actions by just clicking on the add action button, and you can select type of actions, again, which could be republish the message, send the data to HTTP server or MQTT broker, and so on. So let's just select it HTTP server. And in this page, you just need to define your web server information, and you define different methods such as post, put, and get. This should be familiar for you if you have worked with APIs and web servers before. So you get the idea. It's very flexible and it gives you a lot of nice features to manipulate your data. Another nice feature is under the connectors, you can just directly connect this MQTT instance to another MQTT or web server with a few clicks. So you just go to the connectors, press the create button, and you can define whether you want to connect it to another MQTT broker or an HTTP server. In our case, let's just do MQTT broker. And here you just need to specify the parameters of your target MQTT broker, and of course the MQTT version and any username and password that you might have in that MQTT broker. The next menu is the management. As the name applies, you can manage different things within your MQTT broker. The first and most important one is the MQTT setting, which lets you customize many different parameters of your MQTT broker without dealing with command line and scripting. For example, here you can just enable or disable the retain messages, or for example, you can define a session expiry interval and so on. And feel free to explore other menus. They are very self-explanatory. For example, you have the enable login, and you can just do the monitoring of the operating system, the Erlang runtime or VM. And the last two menus are for diagnostics and some system functions, such as creating an API key if you want to connect to this MQTT broker using REST APIs. So the process is fairly simple. You just go to create and give it a name, define the expiration date. In most cases, you don't want to give the unlimited access to this MQTT broker. That's why you can define an expiration date. So that's pretty much it for the dashboard. Again, if you have any question about any of this menu, you can just go to the documentation. The documentation is very comprehensive, and I was able to get the answer to most of my questions by just looking at the documentation and without contacting anyone else. One strange thing that I found, when I created a flow, I cannot figure out how to delete this flow, and I couldn't find that information under the documentation either. So if you know how to delete a flow, let me know. So I don't want to make this video too long, and I hope you got some idea about the EMQX MQTT broker if you haven't used this powerful MQTT broker before. And in the next video, we are going to build a cluster of MQTT brokers to increase the availability of our system, which is normally required in a production environment. As always, if you have any question, let me know. And until the next time, have a great day or night.